All right, we're going to try take two with this. I understand I was recording several minutes of a video with absolutely no sound. Super cool there. So it might have been the most interesting video I've ever uploaded since I wasn't being heard talking, just all that. So anyway, last night we were talking about Amos chapter 8 during our Wednesday night Bible study, a time that we hope can lead to folks being able to relate things to their everyday life and to what's going on with them right now in their Christian journey. And in chapter 8, there's a couple of verses that talk about the River Nile. Essentially, Israel's doing really badly, and God is raining his judgment. He's talking about shaking the land, trembling it, because of what they've done. And he makes an analogy that it would be like the River Nile when it floods. I'm going to read these verses and then tell you what we went with local history from this. So, Amos chapter 8, verses 7 through 8. I'm reading from the ESV translation. It says, "The Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds. Shall not the land tremble on this account, and everyone mourn who dwells in it? And all of it rise like the Nile, and be tossed about and sink again like the Nile of Egypt." So God is going to tremble the land. He's going to shake things up. He's going to rock them to the core because they are ridiculous. Kind of like we would be ridiculous modern day in our Christianity. We think we've got it figured out, especially here in America, but we don't, and we go apostate even when we want to defy him to the point where we want to redefine our religion. Well, we started talking about this River Nile flooding, and some of us saw in our studies that every year the Nile can flood up to 25 feet above its normal surface, which would wipe out buildings and settlements and crops. Well, of course, the conversation turned towards Drennon Creek here, and I'm filming from our porch so you can see where the creek is across the way. You can't really see it with the trees, but you know where I am. And I've printed out a couple of pictures here, mentioned that we had some, and the top picture right next to me here is one that I'm sure I got from our late great historian Eleanor Jones Sharp, and this is from the January to February 1937 flood. And you can see, if you have seen pictures like this before, that it was bad. And if you've ever Googled about the 37 flood or looked at videos or books, it flooded downtown Louisville to the point where businesses were totally decimated and homes. This is a picture of our old one-lane bridge, and if you were, like me, joyriding here in the 80s and early 90s, this was the bridge that you would cross over Drennon Creek before it was replaced by the current bridge. One lane, and sometimes you'd hear some clippity-clop on it. Have to wait for a horse to go past. But you can see that this flood went up to that bridge, and it set pretty high above the creek. So that flood was up here. And then we have a picture that I was given just a couple of years ago by our own Vicki Feller. And you can see that picture. It's from March of 1964. And that would be just down the way, a little bit down that direction. Vicki lives right down there. And you can see it's covering the bottomlands and the trees and such. And we've had that a lot in Drennon. There's been times we've had to reroute people to come to worship or to Bible study. One of the most famous instances in our 14 years here was when our friend and neighbor Steve Cravens brought his amphibious vehicle to Easter worship in suit and tie, driving his boat across the flood and then bringing the wheels up to the building. So very cool. But these floods are nothing compared to what flood God described there. He talked about the land being uprooted just about like the Nile, and we know 25 feet a year, ridiculous. God was raining judgment down on Israel because of how far they had strayed away from their religion, their faith. And do we think that we're any different from that? If we think that the words of this Bible are just suitable for thousands of years ago and the Israelites had lost their way and the folks of Judah as well, well, no. We've got problems here. We have issues in our faith, and we need to prayerfully hearken back to the New Testament, early church. Last Sunday I shared Acts 2:42 to 47, talking about exactly how they began. Let's get back to that. If you are searching for something more in your church life, come try us out down here. We're trying. We've got things that we don't do well. We've got ways we need to improve. Yep, absolutely. But we're trying, and we're seeking to follow the book. That's our denomination. That's our lead. I pray that you find yourself with God, and hopefully in a church family. Going after it as a lone ranger without a church, that's tough. Real tough. Doesn't have to be this church, one that teaches the Bible. Make sure it does, but we will be doing that here. Join us on Sundays at 11. Bye-bye.